So Joe Biden has released his 2025 budget. No shocker, it will not be passing and it will not become law. But this is important because it's showing what he wants to be and what type of president he wants to be in his second term. And there's a lot in here. This is basically like a wish list of what the Democrats would do if they had full control of government.
Yes.
This is what dreams are made of. Okay? So, top line. The Biden proposal is $7.3 trillion in spending over the next 10 years. The budget proposes about $5 trillion in new taxes on corporations and the wealthy over the next decade. These tax hikes will go on high corporations, high earners, and that nobody who makes less than $400,000 a year would see their taxes go up. So where are these tax increases coming from? Well, there's three big ones. First comes from extending the middle and working class tax cuts passed under the Trump term while ending the tax cuts for the rich. So in a lot of cases, well, not in a lot of cases, sorry, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 cut taxes for everybody, but the majority of the benefits went to the top 1% because they have most of the money anyway. So obviously they would get a disproportionate amount of the benefits, right? Well, what Biden and the Democrats want to do is keep the tax rates for the lower and middle income the same while raising the tax brackets for the upper income back up to what it was before.
Which all of our research on economics says is the best thing to stimulate your economy.
Yeah, that's like the best thing to do.
Yeah.
So then he wants to raise the corporate tax from 21% up to 28%. This has been longstanding Democratic policy. Even Joe Manchin wants to see that. That's like a pretty basic Democratic fucking talking point by this point. But then this one is really interesting, and it's a huge change from Democrats in the past. A 25% minimum tax on total income, including unrealized capital gains for the 0.01% of households with at least $100 million in assets. This is a wealth tax, guys.
Yep.
This is a flat-out wealth tax. He's going after unrealized capital gains at a rate of 25%. I agree. I think that if your stock portfolio goes up by some obscene amount, you should get taxed on it. The same way, if my house price goes up, my tax rates on my house goes up.
Yeah.
I get taxed on my unreal gains on my house every year. They should get taxed on their unrealized gains of their stock portfolios.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense that with a 25% minimum tax, it means that you will certainly have the money to pay it if you have this much money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're also not going, from my understanding, they're not going against the assets that have previously been accumulated. So it's not technically a wealth tax, right? Because they're not going against all of your assets you've accumulated over your whole life. They're starting it with the assets you're accumulating in that year.
Yeah, just the unrealized gains of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know how anyone could be against this. We're talking about 0.01% of households with at least $100 million in assets. Who's against this, guys? I mean, this is the most basic.
Maybe the 0.01. Maybe the 100 millionaires.
Yeah. So then what's in it? And this is when it gets really exciting because, guys, like reading this actually makes me feel so much more hopeful for what could be accomplished with a competent Democrat administration and a Democrat-led government. So first, it would create a national program of paid leave for all workers. Right now, the United States is one of the only nations in the world that does not have maternal or paternal paid leave. That would change in a Joe Biden administration if he has given the Senate and the Congress and the House. It would reinstate the expanded child tax credit that Joe Biden created back in the American Rescue Plan. Keep in mind, this expansion of the child tax credit cut child poverty by 43% nationwide. He would reinstate that. He would expand subsidies for the Affordable Care Act and also limit annual out-of-pocket drug costs to $2,000 for every American.
It's huge.
Huge. Now, how big is this ACA subsidy expansion? Who cares, guys? I hear all you progressives out there saying, we need Medicare for all. The Affordable Care Act sucks. Who cares if he expands the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act? The 7 million people who now have health care since Joe Biden took office are the ones who care. So I think this is super important to keep in mind. In 2014, when these subsidies in the marketplaces really started getting into effect, only 8 million people were getting healthcare through the marketplace. It increased to 2016, and when Donald Trump took office, it went down, the growth decreased or plateaued. When Joe Biden gets back into office, he extends the premium tax bracket, okay? And so now subsidies are way more expansive, way more easier to get, and the number jumps from 12 million to 21 million people. 9 million, I'm sorry, I said 7 before. 9 million people received health insurance from the ACA expansion, meaning that we are at the lowest percent of Americans ever uninsured in our nation's history. If these subsidies continue, this number is only going to go up.
Yeah.
And we will maybe one day get soon to universal health care. The point is, this is a step in the right direction. And I understand that this isn't a public option, this isn't Medicare for all, but we're getting there.
Okay.
Right?
It's closer.
It's closer.
Yeah.
It's not a public option, and it's not Medicare for all.
But
In a
you
lot
can't
of
really
cases,
argue. It's in the right direction.
in a lot of cases, he's just throwing money at a private institution that's failing the people.
Yes.
Right. He's taking private insurance companies and he's saying, listen, I know that this person can't afford to pay the premiums, but I'll cover the cost. Right.
Exactly.
Which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. He's also looking into shoring up Social Security. So by targeting a cap on income subject to the payroll taxes that feed the program, he wants to cut that cap, which we've talked about incessantly.
Yeah.
Right now, if you make every dollar you make over $168,000, it does not get taxed by the Social Security payroll tax. All right. If Joe Biden comes into office, he is going to start looking into, he's not going to do it, but he's going to start looking into getting rid of that cap, which is further than any other Democrat has ever gone.
Yeah.
Right? This is the furthest that a Democrat has ever gone on the issue of Social Security. So this is at least good. All right?
Yeah.
He also wants to increase the program's woefully outdated asset limit. This is really important for people with disabilities. And if you have a disability and you're on Social Security, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You are only allowed to get Social Security as a disabled person if you have less than $2,000 in total savings. If you have more than $2,000 in total savings, your benefits start to get cut.
Interesting.
That is not a good encouragement for somebody who is disabled to try to make the best of their situation because they're forced to live on this subsistence level. They can't even attempt to break out because they're too afraid of losing their benefits.
That's so weird. So weird.
So he wants to look into getting rid of that cap. The president, it also contains, this is the most important thing.
Okay.
Forget everything else.
All right.
This is the most important thing. He wants to permanently close the projected financial shortfall in Medicare's hospital insurance trust fund. This is the most important thing. He wants to raise the hospital insurance payroll tax from 3.8% to 5% on all incomes over $400,000. This would shore up the Medicare's hospital insurance trust fund permanently. If we don't fix this, there will be immediate benefit cuts in a couple years. That is non-negotiable. It's automatic, not approved through Congress. It's going to happen unless this happens or something else happens. This is necessary. This is for the longevity of a program that has given a lifeline to millions of seniors in America. And if you want to see Medicare for all, the last thing that we can accept is a decimation of our current understanding and build out of Medicare.
Yeah, don't let it get rolled back.
No, you
Definitely
can't.
Not.
So this is vital. A lot of stuff related to healthcare in his proposal, man. It's really something else. Then he's going after the reinstatement of the earned income tax credit. This is huge. In 2023, the maximum tax credit for adults between 25 and 64 not raising children was only $600, and they needed to earn less than $17,600 to become eligible for this earned income tax credit.
Okay.
If we change this and go back to the earned income tax credit as under the American Rescue Plan, 5 million adults would receive benefits from that proposal. Awesome. Now, what I see so interesting about this and what I see so common in all of these proposals is it's really trying to make the American Rescue Plan permanent. That's what I see here. Increase the earned income tax credit, increase the child tax credit, increase the Obamacare subsidies. It's all about making the ARP permanent.
It is just the dream Democratic agenda, right? Tax the rich more and use to pay for more social programs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is another amazing piece of healthcare legislation.
Okay.
$200 billion invested into the states that have not expanded Medicaid. There are 1.6 million people that could be covered by Medicaid today, but because they live in Republican states who refuse to expand Medicaid, they are not currently covered. 1.6 million people. In non-expansion states, the median income limit for parents to qualify for Medicaid is 35% of the poverty level.
Wow.
So to qualify for Medicaid, you need to make $9,000 annually for a family of 3. And childless adults do not qualify at all.
That is insane.
That's what it's like living in a Republican trifecta state.
Wow.
That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. So when we look at states like Alabama, Florida has 315,000 people that could be covered by Medicaid tomorrow, but aren't. And they don't have health insurance because the government does not want to tax the rich to pay for the health insurance. That's why. That's why you don't have health insurance. So he's proposing a $200 billion thing to go right at those red states and to get to those people and to circumvent the Republicans' non-desire to expand Medicaid. Why do I think this is so great? Because this shows Joe Biden and the Democrats are pushing for the benefits of people that won't vote for them. These people in Wyoming, 11,000 people who don't have health insurance, they're not voting for Joe Biden.
No.
They're voting for the Republican ticket all the way through. But the Democrats are still going to fight to get them health insurance because they believe it's a human right.
Yeah.
And they're not going to stop just because you didn't vote for them. You can say all the time, oh, they're groomers, they're anti-God. You say whatever you want, man. At the end of the day, the Democrats are investing $200 billion to get you health insurance, to get you covered with health insurance, whether you voted for them or not.
And this has been true for years.
Years.
Right? Like, Republicans have been voting against their economic interests for years. And the Democrats have continued to be the party that is trying to increase the redistribution of wealth and income in this country to raise them up. Yeah.
And it's been difficult to get that message across. It's been so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. People seem to not believe it, not care.
Or not care.
Yeah.
So this is great. This is a Democrat wish list. This is Santa's list, right? How are they going to pay for it? No one gets a free lunch. Well, the truth is, it actually ends up saving the government money from what we were planning on doing anyway.
Yeah.
So I forgot where I got the report from. Oh, I hate that I did that. I can't find it. But it's okay. If the current debt to GDP ratio in the United States is around 97%. Okay. If the Joe Biden budget passes, in 2034, the debt to GDP ratio will be 106%. If the Joe Biden bill does not pass, it will be 113%. Now, God forbid, the Republicans take office and make the Trump tax cuts permanent, which is another $2 trillion cut over the next decade.
Yeah.
That 113 could become 116. It could become 115.
I mean, but I also want to be clear. It could become 115 or 116 under Biden too. Because I could see a scenario in which he wants to pass all of these programs,
but the tax cuts don't pass.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or the tax increases don't pass.
Sorry, the tax increases don't pass. Yeah. That's true. For some of you econ nerds out there, you might be thinking, hold on, Anthony. I thought the debt to GDP ratio was 120%. And if you did think that, you're just like me. Because when I saw this chart and read this report, I'm like scratching my head. I thought the debt to GDP ratio was already 120%. What does that mean? Why is this report saying it's 97% right now? Well, I learned something new, and now you're going to learn something new too. There's two different measures of federal debt. There's total gross federal debt and debt held by the public. Two different things. I'm going to read the definitions of both. Total gross federal debt gives a overall picture of government liabilities, and it is the full scope of what the government owes to external people and to internal entities. External and internal. So it's including the money that the government is borrowing from itself. The debt held by the public does not include the internal entities.
Not that the government is holding from itself, but that people in the U.S. have.
No.
Or banks in the U.S.
No, that's not what No. So the government does owe money to the Social Security Trust Fund.
Okay.
And so the money that we owe to the Social Security Trust Fund and the Medicare Trust Fund is what gets us to the 120% number.
Okay.
If we exclude those things, then we're at 97%.
Okay.
And from what I've learned is economists really only focus on debt held by the public because it reflects the amount of government borrowing from external sources and directly impacts the economy through effects on interest rates, investments, and growth. Okay. That's money that could be invested in the private sector that isn't, that's money that could be paid out to the private sector and slowing economic growth, but isn't. Money that we owe to the Social Security Trust Fund doesn't actually have any macroeconomic impact at all.
Okay.
There's no macroeconomic impact to owing money to the Social Security Trust Fund because the money's not going anywhere anyway.
Sure.
But there is money if like foreign governments and companies buy our bonds and they're not paid, whatever, they owe debt on us, they own our debt, that's money that they could be using to invest in the private market.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's why that 97% number comes in. I just thought that was interesting. Briefly, this plan radically differentiates from what the Republicans are proposing. Very briefly, I haven't gotten a chance to do a full deep dive on it. I'll talk about it next week, I think.
Okay.
But quick highlights. The Republicans want to end all Affordable Care Act subsidies. They want to repeal the ability for Medicare to negotiate drug costs. They want to raise the retirement age in there and some other stuff that we'll go into. They want to expand the Trump tax cuts, so make them permanent.
Yeah.
That's like the highlights that I got so far. We'll go into it. Maybe I can pick out some actual good things in there and I could highlight those.
Yeah, but mostly fewer taxes, fewer programs.
Benefits. Yeah. Oh, also wants to end school lunch programs nationwide. Why? Anyway, that's what we got.
Money,
man.
The money the government is spending is all that matters.
So listen, Biden has made an incredible blueprint of what can be accomplished in a second administration and a Democrat Congress. Let's hope he gets it.